Thank you for joining us. I'm Dr. Betsy Woolner, Director of Alumni Engagement at the Cummings School of Medicine at the University of Calgary. The university is situated on the traditional territories of the people of the Treaty 7 region in southern Alberta, which includes the Blackfoot Confederacy, comprising the Siksika, Piikani, and Kainai First Nations, as well as the Tsuut'ina First Nation and the Stoney Nakoda, including the Chiniki, Bearspaw, and Wesley First Nations. Calgary is also home to the Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3. As a proud graduate of the Cummings School of Medicine, it is truly my honor to introduce to you the winners of the 2021 Cummings School of Medicine Alumni of Distinction Awards. Our winners for 2021 include Dr. Trevor Day, an innovative educator in physiology, Dr. Scott Patton, an internationally renowned researcher in psychiatry, and Dr. Maurice Schroeder, a physician and priest who has spent his life serving remote and marginalized populations. I hope you enjoy meeting them.
I'd like to introduce Trevor Day. I set up my lab in 2002, and when you start your journey as a PI, you need good colleagues and even more luck. My biggest luck by far was to recruit Trevor in July 2002 as my first PhD student. Trevor's thesis was incredibly successful and wonderfully controversial. He published 5 first author papers, 2 of which were in J Physiology. Trevor left his PhD for a faculty position in Mount Royal University, where he has absolutely excelled. Trevor's teaching load is astonishing. Teaching is clearly something he loves and something that he is incredibly good at, probably stemming from his deep-seated enthusiasm for science and his genuine love of people. Indeed, Trevor always has time for everyone and is generally interested in everyone he meets. Despite Trevor's heavy teaching load, or because of it, Trevor's also excelled as a researcher. In fact, he was the first investigator ever at MRU to win an NSERC Discovery Grant and was recently awarded a Tier 2 CRC chair. Whenever I visit Trevor's lab, it's a buzz with highly engaged undergraduates. In fact, Trevor has trained over 64 undergraduates. 34 of his trainees have received salary awards to do research projects in his lab. Trevor's research career, which includes studies in teaching itself, is growing in leaps and bounds with 50 peer-reviewed papers, each one more important and impactful than the last. And I always look forward to seeing what's next to come out of his lab because of that very reason. Moreover, Trevor invests heavily in taking science into the community. He's a frequent visitor on radio shows and the Beakerhead Roadshow and HBI outreach activities. Over the last decade, Trevor has taken his research and students to new heights, leading 4 high-altitude expeditions. Some of my trainees and I were lucky enough to attend one of those expeditions. We spent 2 weeks doing intense and challenging experiments, hiking to the peak and socializing. And I was reminded of what a great leader and human being Trevor is, and what a privilege it's been to share some of his amazing journey. So with that, Professor Day, congratulations on your award.
I'm really honored to be named an alumnus of distinction at the Cummings School of Medicine at the University of Calgary and to be recognized by my peers at my own alma mater. I was grateful to Professor Richard Wilson for the nomination, as I was his first PhD trainee when he started his own lab in 2002 at the University of Calgary. It's been great to continue working with him and to recently collaborate with him on a high altitude research expedition, an area I do a lot of work in now. He always told me that if you do science, you'll see the world. He brought me into the lab in 2002, and I'm grateful that I was able to return the favor by dragging him up a mountain in 2019. So science is a team sport, and much of our work is about providing high impact training experiences for our students and trainees and working with collaborators from all over the world. That's the best part of it for me. I integrate my teaching and research as much as possible because undergraduate students normally don't get meaningful research experiences. So it's a pleasure to give those that want it a training experience that's really unique, and it sets them up for the next step in their training. Recently, I started to include high altitude research expeditions as a major part of my research and student mentorship work. And I brought over 30 students to high altitude locations over the past 5 years, including Everest Base Camp in Nepal and the Sierra Nevada mountains in California. One of my favorite parts of my job is working in the lab or in fieldwork context with students and introducing them to an international community of researchers, showing them how to be creative and solve problems. And I feel really lucky I get to do these things as part of my career. Well, peer review is the cornerstone of our work as academics, and being recognized by peers for the work we do, to me, is the highest honor. It's validation that we made an impact, and it's motivation to keep pushing in new and innovative directions.
Scott is a giant in the world of psychiatry. First of all, he's probably the kindest person you'll ever meet. He's taught the Introduction of Epidemiology course within the Department of Community Health Sciences for close to 20 years. This course is required for all of our first-year students across all of the streams of our program. So the students come from very different backgrounds, they have diverse training pathways, and they're nervous as they start their first day of graduate school. But Scott is such a gifted educator that he's able to meet the students where they are, guide them through this very hard material, and support their success through their program. Given he's one of the most published researchers in the world and has in turn trained hundreds of other scholars, the impact of his contributions is very difficult to quantify. But I'll give you the numbers. He's published 494 papers that have been cited over 55,000 times. 10 of his publications have been cited more than 1,000 times. He has defined this field. But from all of these tremendous contributions, for me, the work that I think speaks volumes about who he is his work to combat the stigmatization of people living with mental illness. It is life-changing for people who are living with mental illnesses, and that's what Scott's work has achieved.
Well, it's really nice, I think, to get that kind of recognition. My academic field is epidemiology, so we focus on methods. And it means I end up contributing to a lot of diverse studies, which is fun and interesting. But sometimes you know, as a team player, you're not always the face of the project. Sometimes you're working behind the scenes a lot. So it's really nice to get that acknowledgement of the work you've done. For me, the most rewarding thing has been the ways in which my research work connects to my clinical work. And I think they both keep each other fresh. Always interested in new research results when you're seeing patients, and patients keep you curious and fresh about new research ideas also.
49 years ago, I had no idea that my first-year med school classmate, Father Maurice Schroeder, was already halfway through a prolonged apprenticeship, committed to being a missionary doctor. One focus of that career since has included treating infections of every kind, ranging from microscopic diagnosis of leprosy in Haiti to managing a cholera epidemic in the remote reaches of the Amazon basin of Peru. When the occasion demanded, he could and would both administer a spinal anesthetic and perform a cesarean section on that same patient. He trained women in indigenous communities he visited upriver to administer vaccines to their populace. By example, he engaged those communities to accept scientific medicine without alienating the cultural support of their elders. Just a couple of the things you might not know about Dr. Schroeder. He's a self-trained pianist who can play by ear or write both funny and memorable lines for a med show without blasphemy. He is a serious student of the Indigenous history of Saskatchewan, who will be contributing to the establishment of the First Nations Interpretive Center there. Although he would say himself that no recognition is just for the individual, Father Dr. Maurice Schroeder stands out not only as a generalist physician of the First Order, but as a man with love for all. Mo, it gives me such great pleasure to congratulate you as the most deserving recipient of the Alumni Distinction Award for Service of the Cummings School of Medicine. Yours is a job well done and life well lived.
The realization of my own dream of a mission of medical service in the Peruvian Amazon, fortunately, has brought me much happiness. I am grateful to all those who shared and enabled that dream, and that those who have been heir to its realization have kept it alive until this day. In the beginning, those who enabled the dream included my religious superior, Father J. Lauren MacDonald, and the first doctors with whom I had contact at the University of Calgary School of Medicine in the early 1970s, Doctors Marvin Bala and Keith Cooper, and many others right down to this Cummings School of Medicine Alumni of Distinction Service Award. I should also mention Dr. Ed Love, who first designated us as turkeys, which rapidly became a self-identification for the class of 75, thus launching a tradition which has endured to the present. And here, I thank fellow turkeys, Doctors Graham Law, Russ Springate, and Gord Matheson for today's nomination. This service award is not an individual recognition, because rendering service is never an individual endeavor. The COVID-19 pandemic has certainly taught us the truth of that. I accept this award not only in the name of the many, many men and women with whom I have had the privilege to be a colleague and associate during my years of service, but also in recognition of today's host of heroic service providers, especially those in the medical field, in responding to the challenges of the pandemic, which has now become part of our global reality. So I gratefully accept the honor of this recognition on behalf of all of them. And to the Cummings School of Medicine alumni engagement and the School of Medicine itself that has made it possible, to you I say a most sincere thank you.